Hey guys, welcome to my review of Mission Impossible Season 1, Episode 10, entitled The Carriers. In this episode, our beloved IMF team is entrusted with embedding themselves inside a Russian sleeper operation in which the people in charge of the specific Russian operation want to embed their agents all across the United States, unknowingly infecting them with bubonic plague. I really enjoyed this episode a lot. It reminded me of a rumor that was going around the American intelligence community in the late 70s to early 80s about a potential program that the Russians had entitled the Sparrow Program, to where they would embed sleeper agents who impersonate Americans within the U.S. to secretly, run operations within the U.S. to eventually take it over to some extent. And I really liked that aspect of this episode. The one thing that I didn't like about this episode is that once the IMF gets to the area where the Russian high command, let's call them high command just for the purposes of this review, is vetting their final plans that they're going to send to the U.S. after this training program, the actual Russians that the IMF take to replace look exactly like them. I mean, they got one for Rollins, Cinnamon, George Katay, excuse me, I'm a lifelong Star Trek fan, and the fact that I can't, perfectly pronounce his last name is killing me now. But George Katay, I'm still probably fucking it up. Sulu from Star Trek. The fact that a doppelganger are themselves, but Russians really piss me off. You're gonna go down that route? You could have had Rollin Hand do what he does so well and put on a mask. I thought that would have been interesting to see. The other thing that I didn't particularly like is when they got to the quote unquote training town called I think it was Walnut Grove or something. The town outwardly is, quintessential American Pie. To actually enter the town, you have this big gate with supposedly Russian flags all over the place. In this episode, it's not specific to what country the IMF is in, but I would surmise that the Russians who want to carry out this plot would have a piece of land within the United States already. Now, if that were the case, it wouldn't make sense to have, this beautiful piece of Americana, somewhere in the United States, but to have a section of that place be off-putting by not looking like Americana. That visual just sort of bugged me. This is not essentially a negative. I did think that the instructors that are at the facility have pins on their lapels or their jackets or their shirts or whatever, so that the trainees can identify them. One particular scene that happens early on when Rollins, Barney, and Sulu have just arrived, and they're unpacking their stuff. These monitors, as they call them in the episode, break into the room and try to falsely arrest them. When they first come into the room, you see the pins that they have on, clearly identifying them as monitors. I would have done this scene pretty much the same way, but I would have taken off the pins, because as a audience member, we were just told in the scene previous that, oh, we have monitors all over the place and we can identify them you can identify them, by these pins. If you really wanted to test your new recruits, go and do all the stuff that you want to do, but take the pins off your monitor so it's a little harder for your trainees to really understand when they're being tested. Another thing that I noticed is that our fearless leader, Dan Briggs, who gets the mission at the beginning of the episode, basically has, 2 or 3 scenes in the episode at the beginning and at the tail end when he comes in and he gets Roland, Barney, and Sulu out of the compound. At this point, I don't know whether they had Peter Graves to replace the actor who plays Dan Briggs. Kind of is disappointing that he hasn't been that much of a central figure in the last couple episodes of Mission that I reviewed. I kind of like the actor who plays Dan. As a personal note, that's kind of disappointing. Most of these episodes have our team, whoever they may be presented with a problem, work the problem that they're presented with, and then find a solution. In between that, we are presented with situations of peril for our characters. I would have to say that this is the first episode that I really felt peril for my beloved IMF team. Rollin and the team do find the lab that has the Ebola cultures. Rollin gets infected with the particular strain of Ebola, so it's a mad dash to actually get Rollin the medicine that he needs to not die from Ebola, meanwhile carrying out the charade of the quote-unquote enemy agents not being able to get in the lab to sort of give the people that run this Russian installation to give them the impression that they tried to break into the lab but they didn't. So it was really nice to see some real stakes given to a episode this late in the game. With all that being said, my grade for this episode would be a C-. Alright guys, so that does it for my review of Mission Impossible Season 1, Episode 10, entitled The Carriers. In the comments below, if you've seen this episode, tell me what you thought about it. Tell me what you liked about it. Tell me what you didn't like about it. But as always, until next time, I'll see you when I see you.
So much happened here, and so much is about to.